David Martosko, executive editor of the Daily Caller, with us in studio. David just did one of the coolest speaking gigs in all of the United States of America.
It is so much fun. And Cam Edwards is going to do it next year. Managed to plug him and get him booked for the same gig I just did on Saturday.
I am so excited about this. I got to tell you, David, I had a personal goal that I actually wanted to do this before I turned 40. I will be 39, so you've helped me, cross an item off my bucket list. This is the keynote address for the Independent Institute's Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Party.
Yep. The Independence Institute has done this for 10 years now. They had the 10th annual ATF party. And the concept is simple. If you got alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, you better enjoy them now before somebody takes them away. They're the privileges of adulthood, the perks of citizenship.
Right.
And, there's a whole day just to celebrate those very fine things. Now, I don't drink. I haven't had a drink in over 2 years. But boy, I shot up some clay pigeons like a mean man, and I smoked some good cigars, and I gave a 20-minute speech and took questions, and it's just a lot of fun. Dave Kopel actually was the setup guy. He gave 10 minutes about gun policy, and I mostly covered other things.
Right.
I covered Mayor Bloomberg's nanny state stuff, diet and portion control. I covered a little bit about alcohol. I covered a lot about tobacco. It was just a lot of fun. I made a huge announcement, by the way, and I'll tell your audience this as well. Next week, the Daily Caller, which is, always fantastically innovating and creating new news channels, we are going to inaugurate an LGBT section next week at the Daily Caller.
Really?
It's lasagna, guns, beer, and tobacco.
Lasagna, guns, beer, and tobacco.
Well, we look at it this way. We've already got the guns and gear section.
Right.
I've got an associate editor named Chris Bedford who writes beer reviews.
Yeah.
I'm doing a cigar column now for cigars, and so all that's left is lasagna. So I told Tucker Carlson, go boil some noodles and squish some ricotta. We'll be all set.
That's fantastic. Yeah, you are doing a cigar column.
I am. I started this a few months ago, maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago even. It's called Cigar Hunter. And I'm sitting there on my patio down the street from where you live in Virginia one night and smoking this wonderful cigar that somebody gave me. It's a brand I'd never tried before.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, this is really wonderful. I should write something. Because, when I was in my 20s, I used to be a musician, like a classical musician. And when something would strike me, I'd sit at the piano and kind of express myself. Now I sit at the keyboard and I write something. So I wrote like 1,100 words in an hour. I just kind of poured out about the history of this cigar, why it's interesting to me, why I decided to try it, blah, 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 why I ran away from that brand for so long. I sent it to Tucker Carlson, who's my boss.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think about this? Do you think this is something I should do regularly? And his response was, think of all the free cigars you'll get. Awesome. Yeah, sure. So we branded it Cigar Hunter. I've done maybe 9 or 10 of these things now. And they're going to be up maybe twice a week, every 4 or 5 days, whatever, until I get tired of it, which hopefully will be never. I'm doing interviews with people. I did an interview with one of your colleagues, Rusty Humphreys.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a cigar line out now, a private brand cigar line. You got to get cracking, Cam. You got to get these things going.
I know. I'm leaving so many branding opportunities on the table right now. It's ridiculous.
We call it like the Cam Double Corona or something. I did an interview with Rich Miniter, who's a wonderful author, multiple New York Times bestseller, writes about the Middle East. 2 of us were traveling together a couple of weeks ago. We were in a train station in Paris waiting for a train, and so we went out to a cafe outside, lit up a couple of Cubans, and he told me his 3 favorite cigar stories, which are awesome stories. The column is called Partagas in Paris, and you should go read this. Wonderful cigar stories from his career as an investigative journalist running all over the world. Stories where a cigar helped him get a scoop, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm doing straight out cigar reviews. I'm reviewing cigar shops. While I was in Denver to do this Independence Institute speech, I visited a shop called Cigars on 6th in Denver that actually has a barber shop in the cigar place. So the guy's like, C-SPAN's coming tomorrow to do this, right? Yeah, sure. You need a haircut. Go see Tony in the back. I'm like, what? And in the back, it's a 1-chair barber shop where you can smoke a cigar and get your hair cut and get a straight razor shave while you watch Fox News. It's awesome. And I
can feel the chest hair growing just as you're describing this place.
I immediately flash back to being a kid in Parma, Ohio, where Frankie Chickitano, and I'm not making that up, would cut my hair while he played Frankie Valli, Frankie Avalon, and everybody else in the shop was named Frankie this and Frankie that, and everybody was smoking. Now, you can't go to the hair cuttery and light up.
No, they frown on that.
They do frown on it. But this guy, I'm sitting there smoking a cigar, and I'm saying, my ash is about to drop. Where's the ashtray? And he says, it's right there in the arm of the chair. They all used to be that way. I'm like, oh, you're right. It's like the arms of the old like 727 aircraft. They still have the little flip-up ashtray.
Right.
There's one of these in the barber chair. And I'm like, this is awesome. So I wrote a review of the shop. It's just, these things are getting a lot of very interested response from cigar aficionados and just people who like to read different stuff.
Wow.
A lot of the same people who are reading our Guns and Gear section seem to like this.
All right. Now, listen, I want to compliment you as well because you covered a story as a Daily Caller that, frankly, I think more media should be covering. It's from News Tracker, Ohio, Media Tracker, Ohio.
Yeah.
The story of Mayors Against Illegal Guns and Media Matters for America and these mayors' offices around the country who are all coordinating. Whenever there's one of these, mass killing events, the emails start flying back and forth. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that Mayors Against Illegal Guns, a gun control group, has actually placed staffers in city halls around the country. I mean, imagine, David, if the story were just flipped.
Yeah.
And it was the NRA has, regional coordinators working out of city halls. This would be on the front page of the New York Times.
Of course, sure
50-point headlines.
Yeah.
Holy bleep, America!
It would be very, very big story.
Yeah.
But this is a lot of the things we cover are stories that we think somebody should, and so
Right.
we do. There's lots of stories like this. We were just talking during the break. It kind of pained me when this nut went and shot up the Family Research Council yesterday. A friend of mine was telling me last night that he was watching MSNBC all day in his office and didn't know about the shooting until 5:30 p.m. There's people who don't cover things that they should, so we'll cover it.
Listen, 2 of the 3 networks didn't mention it. Mention.
And how many months went by until NBC News mentioned Operation Fast and Furious?
Right.
This is part of the reason the Daily Caller is there and part of the reason we're so successful. We get more traffic now than the Chicago Tribune, the Boston Globe, Rolling Stone, the New Yorker, the Atlantic.
You guys get more traffic than Rolling Stone?
Oh, yeah.
High five for that one.
Right by him. And so it's because people want some other kind of voice. They're sick and tired of what they're being spoon-fed by the legacy media. Well, that's why Breitbart does so well. That's why The Blaze is doing well. We're all in that same boat together.
It's become apparent to me. I was having this conversation with somebody face to face earlier this week. The counterculture of the 1960s is now the culture.
It's now today's late 60s, early 70s.
But they've taken over.
Yeah, of course they have. Sure.
Which makes conservatism or everything but the establishment.
We're the new long hairs.
Is the new counterculture.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know what? The counterculture is always cooler, quite frankly. and so Rolling Stone has turned into this, bloated, sycophantic a piece of media puffery where you know exactly what they're going to say.
Jan Wenner's little fussy britches kind of thing.
You know exactly what every article is going to say. Newsweek, you know exactly what every article is going to say, what position the author is going to take.
The New Yorker's the same way. The Atlantic's the same way. I mean, this is, my in-laws are in their 70s, and that's why they read the New Yorker. They won't be shocked by anything. It's a known quantity. It's like why they keep buying Toyotas. They've always had them. They've always performed very well. I don't need to rock the boat here.
Right. So, I mean, I think it is. Look, I think you can make a really good case that the Daily Caller and the Breitbarts, and a lot of the new media. This is the new counterculture media. This is the daring media. This is where you're actually going to get stories that challenge authority, not stories that buttress authority. When Devo, David Martosko came out with a song yesterday about, Seamus the dog riding on the top of Mitt Romney's car. Imagine just for a second, like the Doors, and it's 1968.
I'm putting my Whippet hat
with,
on eBay, by the way.
And the Doors come out with all the way with LBJ.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just when did this happen? and do they realize how lame they look?
I don't think they care if they look lame to you and me.
Yeah.
I mean,
no.
I don't buy Devo records. I mean, who cares? And I don't watch MTV, so who cares?
They don't play music videos anymore anyway.
Yeah, that's true. They haven't done that in a while. But look, the real challenge for us, I mean, we're speaking truth to power, and it's easy to say that because Barack Obama's in power and the Democrats control the Senate and yada, yada, yada. What'll be an interesting challenge for us, and I think we'll meet it, is in the fall, if the Republicans take back the Senate and if Mitt Romney becomes the next president, we will have Republicans running the table in Washington. Then the real challenge is whether we're still willing to speak truth to power. I think we've demonstrated at the Daily Caller during the primary season that we've taken good shots, well-deserved shots at some Republican pretenders. We're the ones who broke the story about Michelle Bachmann maybe not being fit to serve as president because she had all these debilitating migraine headaches. I mean, that was a seriously impactful story, seriously impactful. I traipsed around all of New Hampshire in October, pressing every one of the candidates on whether Eric Holder should lose his job over Fast and Furious back in October. Nobody was daring to ask that question until Matthew Boyle at my office started asking it. And I happened to be the guy in New Hampshire that week, so I started asking it. We were putting pressure on Republicans then, and we will do it again. There are some in this new media culture who probably won't. I won't name names,
Right.
but you can count on the Daily Caller to keep speaking truth to power no matter who's in power. That's part of my job, is to make sure we do that. And I'm darn tootin'. I'm very devoted to it.
Talking with David Martosko, the executive editor of the Daily Caller. We've got the Republican National Convention coming up here in 2 weeks. Then the Democrats meet in Charlotte, and of course the big, finale at a stadium.
Yes, right.
We can't. Don't actually.
Do you think he'll have Greek columns this time? I mean, Greece is not exactly the right image you want to project.
Yeah, no.
I think Romney should accept the nomination on a carbon copy of Obama's set. Only the Greek columns have crumbled. That would be awesome. So I'll get some guy who does gladiator movies, like bring in the broken pieces.
Right.
That'd be so cool.
There's some graffiti on the columns.
In Greek, in Demotic Greek.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I think we're probably more likely to see a tiny little Stonehenge drop from the background behind Barack Obama, about 18 inches high or so, and the little dwarves come out and dance around. Look, I mean, they're worried about filling the stadium.
I know.
This time around.
I know. Originally they moved it to that particular stadium because they wanted to sell more luxury boxes, and now they might not fill them.
Yeah, and so I explain something to me, David, if you can.
I'll try.
Okay. All of these polls, show race very close, neck and neck. I saw, we saw the poll a couple of weeks ago, battleground state poll. Oh, Obama's doing better in battleground states than he's doing, generally speaking, across the country. And again, I know you can't read too much into the little anecdotal pieces like, what Mr. McMurray saw at his store today.
Of course.
I mean, is that the Pauline Kael effect? Are we just seeing what we're seeing, and is the race really this close? Or are there people, when the phone call rings and it's October 16th and they're not quite ready to say out loud yet, I'm voting for Mitt Romney, but on election day, they're going to go into the ballot box and they're going to say,
I can't do it again. I can't do it again. Yeah. Look, there's some truth to that, of course. I mean, pollsters will tell you, excuse me, that there are always people who say what they think is socially fashionable to say. Zogby once did a survey where he asked people, along with a bunch of other questions, if they thought public television was an important thing for the Congress to keep funding. And like 97% of Americans say, oh, yes, of course, we watch it all the time. It's in our house. Our children learn wonderful things from it. It's a valuable part of blah, blah, blah. Okay, then Zogby puts his poll out, and somebody else goes and asks Nielsen, what percentage of actual American households tune into PBS during a given month?
Right.
And the number's like 6%. So people will say things to pollsters that aren't true if they think that's the social norm. So as long as Obama remains the social norm in some communities, working class communities, big mechanical foundry towns, factory towns where there's a lot of union labor, black neighborhoods, Hispanic neighborhoods. As long as that's the social norm, that's what they'll tell the pollsters. What they do, who knows? I prefer to look at other indicators, personally. I took my family out to the beach for a week in June in North Carolina. Beautiful area in the Outer Banks, which you should go sometime. I think you're headed there soon, actually.
Yes.
But on the way there and on the way back, I lost count of the yard sales that I saw. And not on Saturdays.
Right.
Sundays, Mondays. People are selling their possessions on the street, and not ordinary yard sale stuff. I mean, I saw grandfather clocks. I saw beautiful dining room sets. I saw somebody wheel a Yamaha Spin-It piano out on the curb. A pool table. People are selling their possessions because they can't make ends meet. Unemployed people are selling their stuff. You want to look at another leading indicator, find out the percentage increase on eBay of luxury goods sales. Upper middle class people are selling their jewelry on eBay in numbers that were roughly, from what I hear, I can't prove this right now, but what I'm hearing from an old college friend who works at eBay, numbers that are roughly 3 times what they were a year ago.
Wow.
Luxury goods on eBay. Great leading indicator. I mean, I take that to mean something. Now, I should say all of this with the caveat that 80% of the country is not in play. There are a handful of swing states. Some people say 12. I think about 7 or 8 that will decide this.
Yeah.
And one interesting metric, which bodes well for the president, is that generally speaking, those 7 or 8 swing states that I consider to be critical have lower unemployment rates than the rest of the country.
Okay. Follow-up question on that.
And those rates are falling more quickly than anywhere else.
Follow-up question on that. How many Republican governors in those states?
I don't know the answer to that question. My guess is it's roughly half and half. It's slightly less than the norm, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
It's a good question. I should look it up.
Because I know Virginia, for instance, is one of those states.
Yes. And unemployment in Virginia is far less than it is, say, for instance, in Iowa.
Right. And now, look, part of that is the, fire hose of spending that Barack Obama has been directing around the capital region. Yeah. So you get, people moving into the Northern Virginia area, a lot of,
But Pennsylvania, too. Pennsylvania I consider to be a swing state.
Yeah.
Lower unemployment than most other states. It's probably the 7th or 8th lowest unemployment rate in the country.
But see, again, does the credit go to Barack Obama or does it go to Tom Corbett?
Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, people walk into the ballot box to vote for president. That's why they show up.
Yeah.
And they're going to ask themselves that basic pocketbook question, the Reagan question, are you better off now, yada, yada, yada. And in Pennsylvania, there's less pain than in North Carolina. There just is. In Pennsylvania, there's less pain than there is in Mississippi. There just is. So there are going to be fewer people who will go motivated to get rid of the president. Now, how that will fall on the down-ticket races, House races, initiatives, ballots, who knows? You need an astrolabe and a mood ring and a magic 8-ball to figure that stuff out. I've given that up long ago. But I can tell you that the president will have an easier time winning Pennsylvania than he will Mississippi. And not just because Mississippi is where it is, but because Pennsylvania has a lower unemployment rate.
Quick follow-up question here before we run out of time. Will the president have as easy a time winning Pennsylvania as he did 4 years ago?
No, the margin will be tighter.
All right.
I think he's going to lose North Carolina, where the margin was incredibly tight. I think that state is gone. Jim Messina shouldn't even pretend that's on the board anymore. The margins will all be tighter, but the swing states will matter, and nothing else will. That's why he's not out there campaigning a lot in the state of Washington or Montana. Why bother?
David Martosko, executive editor of the Daily Caller. Thank you again, sir, for coming to studio tonight.
Let's do it more often, Cam. I love it.
Absolutely. When we come back to the program, Tom King's going to join us from the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. Stick around. Much more Cam and Company on the way.